right of the people, baby.
To truly choose to love is heroic.
Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people.
It takes the willingness to stand by and do what has to be done when it has to be done.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Off The Shelf Bookclub. My name is Jermaine.
My name is Jessalin.
And we're excited to get into this next episode with you guys. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with other people, man. We're trying to spread the knowledge and do the knowledge because we want to build a community. And remember to drop those comments in the bottom below if you have any opinions that you want to bring to the table, and we would discuss them on our podcast as well. And if you need any type of resources, or you know someone who needs resources for finding these books, we have a bunch down below and a bunch of other resources that if you know, or if you need them, or if you know someone who needs them, they're down below to share. And we're really excited to get into the second part of part 4 for us. And before we get into that, we will do our land acknowledgement as usual. The Off The Shelf Book Club wants to offer our utmost respect to those who came before us on this land. It is important that we protect and acknowledge the history of the indigenous people of America. Minnesota Makoche, which means the land of the water that reflects the sky, is the homeland of the Dakota and Anishinaabe people. Minnesota and its history has been involved in the genocide of Native people and multiple treaties that stripped them of their homelands. Where Off The Shelf Book Club resides is the home of the Metawakan people, which means dwellers of the Spirit Lake. Off The Shelf Book Club will do whatever we can to honor the Native people and their lands, and do what we can to aid in the land back movement. All right, so getting into part 4, the second part of part 4, going over the questions we weren't able to get into the last episode. The first one is going to be, how can we implement abolition in our schools?
How can we better use media to help us inform and incentivize action?
And the third question we got here is, how can we work to get the cop out of our hearts and our heads? I like that question.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So, getting into how can we implement abolition in our schools? I think my first thing was just like when when Cabo was going over like the school resource officers. It was just a reminder that like school resource officers should not exist. Period.
Right. I agree. I remember there was one time when I was in class and we were talking about SROs, and my professor, they had everybody like, raise your hand for or against. I was the only one that raised my hand that was against SROs.
Yeah. And I really don't understand the real purpose. Like, there is no purpose for them. Period.
I think, like, in some ways there are, there can be certain positive outcomes that come from them in terms of, like, relationship building, community building. But I don't think that good outweighs the actual overall harm that it causes.
I don't really think
because it's usually like a specific there's one too many, just usually with that specific circumstances, whether when we look at it as like a whole, they don't particularly, I think, do anything or cause more negative.
Yeah, I don't really know if I'd even say that the community building is really there, because a lot of the times, I mean, I don't know many of the black students in our school when we were going. They didn't really have much of a connection to any of the school
That's
resource
because they were
officers.
too worried about the goddamn girls.
Well, that's a different, yeah. But we also, I think we had a different one too, and it still was the same thing. Like, and I see kids today where they, well, when we were working in this, when I was working in the school, was like not a lot of them have that real relationship, because I think it, like, at the end of the day, for a lot of people, seeing a cop, you automatically feel like you're criminalized almost in a way. When you have a cop in your presence, like watching and surveying and stuff, that is criminalizing. Like, that almost is incentivizing for something bad to happen.
Yeah. I mean, and I think like that's right where I'm getting at is overall, right? Our understanding is that cops in a space mean that somebody, you or multiple people, did something wrong. They're there because, something happened. They're not there for good. And while we didn't have that experience in our school, I know of people who testified in that particularly instance who did talk about positive outcomes with their SRO. So they're there.
Yeah.
We can't deny that they're there. It's just not enough.
Well, it's
Because they're talking about
yeah.
that like already implanted like understanding of police, etc., that like if they're there, then that means that there's something negative. Whether that's a belief about yourself, a belief about a group of people in the school, or a belief about the schools in general, the school as a whole. Oh.
I don't know. I can see why there could be benefits, but I think that, yeah, I guess just like you said, there is the bad outweighs the good. So, and I don't really feel safe with officers. And like my number, like I think that a lot of people's gut reaction is to be like, well, what about school shootings? And I think that that's like the worst. Like,
we haven't yet seen them be
right,
effective in that
they're
instance.
never effective, and especially after the Uvalde, Texas shooting, where they're like outside of the school for, I think it was like a couple hours, while there's literally children being killed, and they have more guns, more equipment, more people than there were shooters, and they still were afraid to go in. And it's like, well, then what is your, like, why are you here? That's like, what is your point of even being here if you're not going to do something? And along with that, like, how do we expect, like, if there's, because at the end of the day, you're sitting here and we choose to humanize cops at the, like, at the times where their job is like the most crucial. You know what I mean? And I don't think that that's fair in this situation. Like, you're sitting here and the only resource we have to stop these school shootings are these police officers, but these police officers aren't actually willing to go and stop this shit when it's happening. Why aren't we doing other things to stop this before it even fucking happens? Like, why can't we invest in that? Why can't we sit here and depend on the fact that we have built a system to prevent things instead of doing something about them when they happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that. Like, it just, that's why it goes into the divestment of just police officers, period. Because I don't think that that's a real use. I mean, we could create more like security through like the doors in schools, like they already have, but increase them, and having schools built in ways where it's like safer for students in those scenarios.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't even be like building our architecture around our architecture. I said that right the first time. Around the fact that we are letting our children get slaughtered. We need to start working at like stopping it, period.
Yeah.
You know, and that's having a officer in the school that's not doing that at all. It's not,
Right.
or going towards that cause at all.
Yeah.
Sorry if that kind of changed things, but
No, you're good.
um yeah, but the part in this part of this section of part 4 was arrest in the carceral state, and Cabo really went over really just dove into the reasons why this isn't good. And it's really just one step closer for children to be put into the school to prison pipeline.
Right. And breaking that down, because it does start with, the schools. And I think a big part of that, right, that she talks about in that beginning is these zero tolerance policies. And maybe in hindsight, it sounds good. You know, somebody get, two kids get into a fight. Well, they're both just suspended for, the amount of time, right? To think that it would actually reduce it, but instead, right, you're just causing more harm to these individuals, because you gotta ask, like, why are we doing whatever it is in the first place, right? Like, and that can open doors for actual help that some of these kids may need, and things like that. Not to mention, them being in school is what's actively keeping them from committing crimes
Yep.
and doing harm, because they're less likely to do it in school than they are to do it outside, right? If they're not in school, then all they do is have the time to hang out with people who maybe they shouldn't, to then start to do those things. And so when you go and you suspend them, expel them, whatever it is, and they just spend all that time outside.
Right.
And they're not getting actual help that they need. And it's just producing a constant problem. These zero tolerance policies only produce problems.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not problems that the school has to deal with. There's still issues, though.
Right. And the zero tolerance policy, like I don't know if it's as happens as much now as it has, but I've heard from people who've experienced it, like getting arrested in school is like a really traumatic thing. Getting arrested, period, is traumatic. You know what I mean? But to get arrested in front of all of your peers, and then to expect that person to go back into that space afterwards, or even if they're allowed to go in that space afterwards, we're just shutting this person out from the world. It'd be just easier to just dump them into the place where we put the most money, which is prison. On page 78, Kaba says in the third paragraph on here, yet we won't solve the STPP student prison pipeline, I believe that's what it was, problem by simply changing school disciplinary policies, because many states spend more money on prisons than education. We have to change the funding priorities as well. Between 1985 and 2005, the state built, or for example, take Illinois, between 1985 and 2005, the state built more than 25 new prisons or detention facilities. Over the same span, no public colleges or universities were established. Funding reform initiatives for K through 12 education mandated by the Illinois Supreme Court have stalled for decades, ensuring that poor communities and communities of color still receive significantly less money. So we're sitting here, it's because we know we have a place for them where they're going to make money for the system, for the government, for the state. We invest in those places instead of into the children while they're children. We don't want to invest in the youth. And that's really like the downfall, I think, of America, period. I mean, where does that even make sense, like logically? Like, it just logically doesn't make sense. That means like you're like breeding, you're like trying to breed criminals instead of graduates. Trying to be gangsters instead of graduates. Yeah, but yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know. It
Yeah.
really, what the fuck? Just what the fuck? I don't know. There's no logic within that. There's no concrete logic at all.
No.
Unless you just want like chaos.
Right.
And they do, because they fucking profit off of it. And abolition really includes like relocating funds. Like that's a huge part of abolition. It's probably one of the main pillars, especially when you're like talking about government wise. You gotta like divest from these systems that are really fucking us up.
Right.
And invest and reinvent on the systems that we do need, like education. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like invest in it, but that doesn't mean invest in more resource officers.
Right.
That means investing in like mental health for the children.
And like at a minimum, right? Like it's just asking for more money for these things, right? Because for some reason, we can always ask for more money for, the police, the military, etc., all those things, even if you're not changing the budget for anything else.
Right. It's just like how I can't remember her name, but she does a lot of stuff about like Minneapolis and like hates Jacob Frey because who likes that? Who likes his ass anyways? But she talked about how there was a discussion about like the Minneapolis budget and how there's going to be a lot of cuts right now. And the only cut he talked about for police was overtime cuts.
Oh. Yeah. I just be looking at him. He be aggravating me for real. Yeah. Something about that face.
And like, I don't know. I hope people don't sit here and like let him slide because he likes to just like be around us for a little bit. He'll like do his little cameo around black folks or just people of color, period. And then
everybody just want to be like, oh my gosh, like I just seen a stupid ass video of this coffee shop at the coffee shop. But it was a coffee shop that I think was out there, and he tried a coffee, and the coffee, right, the latte was called East African Baddie. And everybody was just in. Well, there were some comments that were clearly like praising him and stuff. A lot of people were just like, "What the fuck is he doing? Just out here doing nothing, absolutely not a goddamn thing."
It's irritating.
Or the dancing video. You just be letting it motherfucker slide too much.
All right. So, getting into our second question for today. How can we better use media to help us inform and incentivize action?
Yeah. I think a lot around media, especially like around this topic that I tend to see being in that space particularly often, not saying that I see everything, but I see a lot of things, is like there's a lot of fear mongering, there's a lot of policing, and I feel like there's not a whole lot of leading in a way that actually gets people interested enough, because I think we use almost like scare tactics that can like push people away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about one person that I came across that said something about, like, at the end of the day, right, you can say whatever you want, but when somebody gets into that booth to vote, it's just them and their thoughts. And whatever you said with, before that, yeah, sure brings that with them, but like, if you're saying it in a way that turns them off, then you're just like, that's going in there with them. And I think that in terms of how we can show up more online is genuinely bring some more heart into it. There's not a lot of people that are abolitionists. So when people who aren't get into that space, you attacking them for not believing that, crazy work. Because you're not going to come across a lot of people that are. So I think there needs to be a better space in, like, how do we lead with love and understanding? I mean, of course you're going to encounter ignorant people. That's a whole nother story. And even then, like, people are probably going to push back a lot on the idea too, because it is out there in hindsight. Like, it is really out there.
You have to use your imagination.
Yeah, because we're so indoctrinated to this is how something is supposed to be. But if we're so, like, hard, right, on it, especially in media, because everybody's yelling at each other, ain't nobody gonna come over to this side.
I think that also, like, a good way to incentivize action is, like, I think people need to do just better at, like, educating. And I mean, we obviously we can improve our stuff and whatever, but like, just a genuine like, we need a space for education for real, because there is just a lot of people who, once they got out of high school and they graduated high school, it's like, all right, I'm done really learning, because like, that shit's for school, you know what I mean? And it's like, we should always kind of like keep on pushing people to learn, and not even like in like pushing people, just like putting the information out there and easily accessible and digestible. Like, that's the other part that I think is important, is making it accessible, and not only just accessible, but like easily digestible. And sometimes some certain situations it's going to be harder because you need to like do some more explaining and there's more details that are needed. But like, also, like, we should make it to where everybody can understand where we're coming from, because I think that that's the main part of like being an abolitionist, being a socialist, you know what I mean? Is trying to make sure that everybody is getting it.
Right.
Everybody can get what they need. And education is a huge part of it. And I think that, I think social media can easily be used for that. And people need to start talking about, like, there's moments where you realize that abolition is like, that's what I needed. Like, that's what I need to like lean on. Well, we need to start sharing that more of like, what made us realize that this is it.
Yeah, I think like that digestible piece, like easy to digest, is like, I think also another like really big issue. I've seen someone explain it before, right? When we look at like right versus left, wing things, is that the right is able to take, right, the amount of time we have for our attention span, which shrinks like at every possible moment. They're able to take those like 30 seconds, say something, right? Even though it's completely wrong, just fucking batshit crazy or whatever, right? But they can say it in the 30 seconds. It's going to grab somebody's attention. But in terms of us having to rebuttal that takes longer than that 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And at that point, people have lost interest, right? People have lost interest for us to be able to try and get their point across and why they're wrong for saying that, or that thing, which automatically makes it harder for us to like get our point across, get it easy, make it easy and digestible for those, because it does naturally take us longer than that 30 seconds to say something. Especially if we're trying to fight back against fucking craziness.
And it's like, we got to take control of the narrative. That's what it really is. And like, we push the narrative, we make the agenda. We don't allow them to misuse our words and change the direction of our movement, because we have made it crystal clear and we've made it accessible to everybody so that they can know that this is our agenda and we need to push it out there, because this is our agenda. Like, at the end of the day, everybody got an agenda, and we have to start making it clear instead of acting like there is no agenda. Like, make it clear, because at the end of the day, that's politics. You know what I mean? I want you to have an agenda, to be honest. Like, you ain't got no plan. Like, I want to know the plan. And a lot of the times, the Democrats, I feel like they've gotten so lazy, because they're like, oh, it's just Trump. Let's just throw somebody in there that we think could be Trump or whatever.
We're just going to lead with a hate Trump and fear Republicans type of agenda. That way they don't actually have to put forward things that are going to make us vote for them, because we're already going to, because we fear the Republicans, we fear Trump. Just crazy.
Which, that actually reminds me of there's this app I came across the other day. It's this creator, Instagram, I believe. He created this thing called Govy, and I think that this is actually really perfect for today. Is you could look up your state and like your representatives, and like giving you like a wrap up of like what they voted for, things that they've passed, stuff like that, and like different articles of just things that they've done. And like, I think that that's a really fucking good idea. That's actually brilliant, and we need to like look for that, because we all got lives, man. We all got lives, and it can get really hard and get caught up in it, but we also like want to make our lives better and easier and more livable instead of trying to survive. Like, we got to take the time of doing that, and that's just it, just making things accessible and digestible. That's the title of this episode. Accessible and digestible.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna write it down. But is there anything else you want to add on to this question?
No.
All right. So, moving on to our third question here, we got: how can we work to get the cop out of our hearts and our heads?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes in with what, like I said earlier, like, we are so against cops that we end up being them to each other. And I think that is, like, that doesn't even make any sense. How, like, yes, we need to hold each other accountable and things of that nature, but holding each other accountable does not equate to being a cop. And acting so, like, carceral, right, towards each other, completely ridding of somebody because they may have said something wrong, etc. I think the biggest piece is that everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's going to do some kind of harm. And within that, like, they need to learn to hold themselves accountable, to do what needs to be done to re-enter the space that they were in and learn from it, etc. And I think the biggest thing about that is almost like we gotta go back to the golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated. If you were to do something or cause harm, which you will at one point, everybody will at one point, right? Whether it's big or small harm, you will cause harm in some way, right? If you were to cause harm, would you want people to completely rid of you? Just like cast you out of like society? No. Nobody,
Dehumanize you.
right. Dehumanize you. Nobody actually wants that for themselves. So don't do that to others. It's crazy that I feel like I have to say this for
adults.
Right. Because it's like we should know this because everybody's taught that. Even if our politics have never aligned at any given point or time, right? In terms of families, etc., all that stuff, we've come from completely different worlds. Like, we know that everybody was taught that to some degree, to some point in time, whether it was from your family, from your teachers, from somebody. So it's crazy that we're just not gonna do it. We're just not gonna do it.
And I think the fact that it's so easy to like look away, you know what I mean, from the fact that that's what we're doing and how much we lean on them is the worst part, because us just turning our eyes, I think, from overall like just over policing, for example, whether that comes from like interpersonally or actual police.
Yeah.
We have just like allowed so much bullshit to slide because let's clean up the streets, you know. It's such a stupid fucking saying because it's actually making it worse out here. And I think that has led to like on in this chapter here, I can't remember which one it was specifically. I live in a place where everybody watches you everywhere you go. I think it starts on like page 88. But she kind of goes through these stories of these gentlemen out in Chicago, I believe, and just talking about their experiences of dealing with the constant surveillance of their communities. And how bad it was and what the cops were doing to terrorize them, and that they were like, watching them so much that they knew that, oh, they don't go to this side of town because this side of town is a rival gang, or they get out of school at this time, so I'm going to meet them on this corner because they live down this block. You know what I mean? Like things like that, and how it has fucked over so many youth of color. And it is evident that we were so okay with it before because it either wasn't happening exactly to you, or you're just like, oh, it is what it is, that's the world, when it doesn't need to be like that. And now that we've turned our heads so long, we have flock cameras. Like the fact that we have flock cameras, it comes from the fact that we were okay with over policing a certain group of people. Now it is over policing and surveillancing everybody. Nobody gets a pass now.
Right. Whatever they'll do to a small group, they'll eventually do to everybody else. It just takes a little bit of time, right?
Like exploitive labor. And now,
precisely.
Like if you can look at all the America's biggest fuck ups, you can still see like how, since we didn't deal with it with like a firm hand and like stay consistent and move forward with these things, there's a lot of things that America has done that it's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they technically gave, I don't know, that might have been,
What?
I'm not going to say that, because that might be controversial. But something, again, that I think reflects, like, America and its actions is, like, you know, just another one is, like, how America has given off certain reparations because they know they've done wrong or that somebody needs assistance in some way, shape, or form, and they're willing to give them. But there are certain groups that they don't give them to, like they haven't given them to Black Americans. They haven't given majority of the land back to the indigenous people of Americas. And there's so many different reasons why America should probably, you know, pay some reparations to some people, and they continue to not do it. But they also, but you see who they fund and what they fund, and it's very, you know, when you look at that's why it's important to, you know, educate people in the media, because people can connect the dots themselves too. You just got to put the information out there. But the current flow of information and media and past media hasn't displayed the contradictions of America, and there's plenty of them. And the people, sometimes it is frustrating sometimes to know the contradictions of America and have to explain it to people. But guess what? If you want them to actually be part of the change, you got to take the time to explain it to them. And that's what it all boils down to. So, is there anything else that you want to say about how can we work to get the cop out of our hearts and our heads?
No, I don't think so.
All right, cool. Well, this has been another episode of Off the Shelf Book Club. It's a little bit shorter because we just wanted to make sure we touch these topics, and, you know, dive into them as much as we need to. We will be going into our next part, which is part 5. We must practice and experiment. Abolitionist organizing in theory. We have, I think, 2 more after this. Yeah, we have part
5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, 5, 6, and 7. That's what we have left. So we're really excited to wrap up this book. It's going to be a good next few weeks, and we're excited to get into all that with you guys. Appreciate you for tuning in as per usual. Remember to like, subscribe, share, comment down below. If you want to add on to our conversation from anything that you've heard today, you can either drop a comment, email us, you can hit our DMs. I don't know. You can try all of them.
However you want to get a hold of us.
Yep, it's in the description if you want to. Don't forget to hype the video. We want to get this in front of as many people as we can. We appreciate the love and the support. Thank you guys again for tuning in. We wish you nothing but the best. Great health and wealth. A peace of mind. Ashe.
Ashe.
I write it for people, baby.
To truly choose to love is heroic.
Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people.